So we'll have Dr. Michaels do his rebuttal now, and then John Hoaglung will do his presentation.
Thank you. Okay, I made some notes during Mark's presentation. First of all, I think it's disingenuous and, frankly, a little bit disturbing that anyone would say that I was a denier of climate change. I believe the first image that I showed said global warming is real, and I believe that I said that human beings are putting carbon dioxide in the air, and that is resulting in a warming of the planet. Perhaps I'm not a good communicator anymore. I realize I'm not the youngest thing in the world, but I was trying to make the point that there is a false polarization between alarmists and deniers, and in fact there is a large and growing group of people who are doing, and I've done some of the research, and publishing on what is the lower sensitivity result in climate change. You might say there are, if you want to say there are alarmists and deniers, and there's a third group, which I think we should call lukewarmers. And in fact, in a shameless plug, in October there will be a new book hitting the market, and it is called Global Lukewarming, and I think you can probably guess the author. Now, I have heard the following rhetoric, that we must do something about X, otherwise there will be a total collapse. I want to tell you how old I am, not by telling you my age, but by telling you how many total collapses I've lived through. I have lived through the population bomb. Paul Ehrlich wrote that horrific book, 1965 or 68, and he's still on Today's Show every morning. I have lived through resource depletion. We're running out of food, we're running out of oil. We were even running out of natural gas in the year 2000 until we discovered that we had 200 years worth at least right underneath our feet. Acid rain, which was supposed to cause an ecological silent spring. It turns out precipitation is naturally acid, and it doesn't seem to have nearly the effect that people thought it was going to have, though we did get sulfur dioxide out of the air from the power plants, and that's probably a very good thing. Probably didn't have that much of an effect, though. I think it probably should have been called half-acid rain. And then I lived through global cooling on the cover of Newsweek. I lived through ozone depletion, and I believe that I'm going to live through global warming, and I will even tell you what the next end of the world is. We must do something about this right now, and that will be something called ocean acidification. Now, with regard to the notion that people are very concerned about this issue, the President thinks so. Here's what he said on June 14, 2014. The talking heads say that public opinion is hopelessly deadlocked. It's not. 7 in 10 say it's a serious problem. Thank you, Mr. President. Why don't you actually take a look at the polling data from the Pew Research Foundation? This just occurred within months of before the President made that pronouncement. The American public routinely ranks dealing with global warming low on the list of priorities for the President and the Congress. This year, 2014, it ranks second to last amongst the 20 issues tested. There it is, down below reducing crime, dealing with the nation's energy problems, strengthening the U.S. military, etc. Every year it does that, and when you list environmental issues, clean water, clean air, they always come out on the top, and this one comes out dead last. Do you know why? It is poison politically to engage in this issue. Cap and trade cost the Democratic Party the control of the House of Representatives in the 2010 election. I can prove that, because every close race was lost by a Democrat, virtually everyone, who voted for cap and trade. Both houses of Congress voted for health care. Every close race in the Senate was won by a Democrat. The Senate did not vote for cap and trade. It cost them. It cost them control of the Senate in the 2014 election. Take a look at West Virginia. Take a look at Louisiana. Take a look at Alaska. If you engage this issue nationally, you do so at your political peril. And finally, the notion that a revenue-neutral carbon tax is a desirable solution. Sure, it will generate about $3 trillion in revenue. Now, if revenue neutral means for $3 trillion, that $3 trillion will walk down K Street in Washington, D.C. unmolested. Do you believe that? I do not. So, finally, I would like to just go on and go to Mr. Hansen here. This is his famous testimony from June 23rd, 1988. Global warming is sufficiently large, we can ascribe with a high degree of confidence a cause and effect relationship to the greenhouse effect. There's a strong cause and effect relationship between the current climate and human alteration of the atmosphere. It was done that testimony was given on a record hot day, the June 23rd record is still the 1988 record. The day before still holds the record for that. It was wonderfully scripted theater. And he had a computer model that he showed. And he had two scenarios for increasing carbon dioxide. One was called Scenario A, which is business as usual. The other one was called Scenario B, which is a fairly interventionist policy. We are much more closer to Scenario A than Scenario B. It doesn't matter. When you make a forecast, you got to check the forecast to see if the forecast is right. And if the forecast is wrong, there's something wrong with your methodology. And you ought to try and figure out what it is. That's what science is supposed to do. Ask the late Richard Feynman if you can communicate with the dead. So, here is the Scenario A in red. That's when he made the forecast. Here is Scenario B in orange, and there is reality. That's what's known as a very, very bad forecast. It is consistent with the notion that the sensitivity of temperature to carbon dioxide was massively overestimated. Hansen likes to say that a 2 to 3 degrees C human warming could occur within a century. He has testified to that, and that would result in the melting of the Greenland ice cap, which would raise sea level 23 feet. So that's the idea. Greenland, all the ice flow from Greenland is enhanced by meltwater. Instead of 2 inches, we get 20 feet. And the question is the warming there unprecedented? No, it's not. For 3,000 years after the end of the last ice age, that's between 6,000 and 9,000 years ago, the boreal forest, the Northwoods, grew all the way to the Arctic Ocean. It's now 150 miles south of there. That means it had to have been 7 degrees warmer in July than it is now. You know what happened to the ice at the end of the summer in the Arctic Ocean? It was gone for 3,000 years. And the polar bear survived. But the story gets better, because the end of the ice age was provoked by something called the Earth's orbital precession, as was the end of the last ice age. And at the beginning of the interglacial, not this one, but the one 125,000 years ago, it was warm in Greenland, so warm you can't believe it. We did not know how warm. We thought it was maybe 2 or 3 degrees C warm. We now have drilled to the bottom of the Greenland ice core. We can look at the temperature year by year by year, and you see for 6,000 years after the end of the ice age, the last ice age, not the one that we just got out of, but the penultimate one, the temperature averaged 6 degrees C. That's 11 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in the summer than now. Greenland did not lose all its ice. It lost a grand total of 1/3 of its ice. Now let's do some math, and I will close. That was 6,000 years times 6 degrees. That's a heat load of 36,000 degree years. We could burn carbon dioxide until the cows came home, and we might raise it 5 degrees up there for 500. That would be 2,500 degree years. It survived 36,000. I'm sorry, it's over. And let me finish with one other thing. A woman by the name of Harriet Lindquist, a couple years ago, found a skeleton buried up there, and she wanted to see what it was. She sequenced the mitochondrial DNA, and it was a polar bear, and it was from before the 6,000 year warm period. The polar bear survived 36,000 degree years of heat. We might be able to put 2,500 on it. I guess my opinion is, yeah, this is a very interesting issue, but if we actually were being honest with ourselves, we would probably go on to the next end of the world. Thank you.